attending and watching in both realms of life, or virtually or in person. We thank you in Jesus' name, and so be it. So, today's topic, is it really 2026 or the spirit of 2025 still around? I don't know. We're about to find out. I also want to know why, oh, why, what that is.
Good afternoon, everyone, and good evening. Good evening for those who will be joining us soon as well, or even good morning to those who will be watching us on the web in the future. Yes, is it really 2026 or the spirit of 2025 is still around? What do you guys think? Are we really on 2026? Okay. Anything that we brought back from 2025 yet? Maybe 2024, maybe 2023. And that's why we're here today. Yes. It's Daniel did an amazing talk, brought up an amazing talk last week to us, talking about New Year resolution, right? And one of the things that we would like to do is on this tone of New Year resolution, to talk about what we can do, not only in the physical sense, but also in the spiritual as well as in the moral sense of our resolutions, right? Our New Year resolution. Something that we can carry with us, not only for this year, obviously, but also the following years. And most certainly, to the next life. Not the bad stuff, but the resolutions that we would like to make up here and up here as well. Because sometimes, most of the time, and I'm here speaking for myself as well, not saying anything to anybody, even though this is a public meeting, speaking to all of you, not only here on the web and on the other side of life, right? I'm included on this. And often I've been thinking about, just a parenthesis, I've been thinking about all the things that happens. Let me take a step back. The necessities of the center, right? What's important to us, right? What would be important to bring in terms of, that will allow the public, our community, to become better spiritists, to become better individuals, right? And one thing that comes to mind is, if something is bothering me, most certainly it'll be bothering other individuals. Obviously, we don't want to come here and say, oh my gosh, I'm suffering with this, I'm suffering with that. But quite frankly, what we're going to see today is part of me as well, right? It's part of what I go through as a human being. And as also what others, and we see this in the literature, perhaps we have 2,000 years under our belt with the teachings of our Master Jesus, and we're still suffering. It's not bad. It's okay. But we need to do something about it. So the idea is for us to go into this idea of New Year resolution, but with the intent, but to also make New Year resolutions with the feelings, with the thoughts, right? So that we don't carry this around. As I was saying, Daniel last week brought some good ideas, amazing ideas of what we can do in terms of New Year resolutions. He also brought some studies in terms of the percentage of individuals that comes to us, makes a resolution, and then they give up in the first couple weeks, couple months, and then the year. This one here, as you can see, we just brought to illustrate. This is a research done by YouGov, and it kind of gives us an idea what people are thinking about, right? Exercising more, that's the top one. Being happy, eating healthy, saving more money, improving health, physical health, losing weight, improving mental health, learning something new, so on and so forth. Once more, I wanted to highlight not only that we are making these resolutions and it's a great thing, right? But most of them, if we take a look at it, they're what? Concerned about the physical body, which there's nothing wrong with that. You know, sometimes we need that boost. We need to go outside. We need to walk. We need to um, do our exercises, right? Eat less, right? But if you're thinking about these things, or since we talk about the eat less, what happened before you ate too much? Well, before you ate too much. Before you ate too much, you didn't feel bad. The thought was to what? Oh, I see in front of me, I'm going to eat it, right? So there was no stop. So there was a thought, there was a feeling, right? An impulse that we couldn't stop, right? So the reason I'm saying this is because, once more, I want to highlight that there's nothing wrong with these New Year resolutions. There's nothing wrong about taking care of our physical bodies, because at the end of the day, we are the trustees of these physical bodies. But for sure, we're not taking with us to the other side. It's going to stay here. What we will take with us are the more resolutions that we will make to say, perhaps this year, instead of eating that chocolate cake, I'm going to take a step back and say, maybe not today, right? I didn't exercise today, so maybe tomorrow, right? Maybe I won't go crazy on whatever sweets or whatever food we have, or other things in life as well that excites us, right? I'm included on it. But again, I highlight that we have these resolutions. We have to think about what is what's causing this, because I cannot come to Dion and say you have to eat this chocolate cake. Ultimately, it will be her decision to say yes or no, right? And that's before she eats it. She will take it, right? And I will take it too, right? But then we have to think, okay, what are the consequences of this? So let's translate this now into the moral aspect of our lives, right? The decisions that we make in our lives, right? Sometimes we carry on with us things inside of us, that guilt that either is sparks from something that somebody did to us, right? And we ask ourselves, why did I let this person do this to me? Or the opposite, when we do certain something towards someone else, and we keep humanating that same feeling over and over and over, right? Why did I do this? Why did I let this happen? Right? I hurt that person. Something happened in between. And we go back to the same situation here. Before the action, there was what? A thought, a feeling, right? Something that sparked that condition or that situation. Sometimes can take us to a tragic moment or not, right? Sometimes we put ourselves in the position that I wash my hand. I'm not going to do anything. Is that correct as well? No, because that later on can put us in the situation of what you guys were asking me. The why, oh why. The year over year baggage that we carry with us. I use the term year over year because it's something we hear this in management all the time, operations, banking, all kinds of departments that we can work on to kind of talk about growth. Year over year, or YOY, it's a way of measuring growth by comparing a statistic like revenue or GDP in one time period with the same time period 1 year later, right? Do we do this analysis of comparing myself, my feelings, my thoughts with the Leo last year? Quite frankly, we don't. Because we're so ingrained in the situation, in the thoughts that we have brought to with us, in the guilt, right? In the idea of, the rage that sometimes arises from those feelings, that we don't think about it. There is no resolution for it, right? This year, I'm going to be a person better than I was last year. In terms of what? Let's be more direct. This year I won't lose my mind like I was losing my mind in 2025, right? But we keep bringing the same behaviors over and over and over and over. Funny enough, I was listening to a short video by Warren Buffett, and he was saying something really interesting. For us to create models in our lives, in the same token, to demolish some of the models that we create within our minds, right? Within ourselves as well, for ourselves. I said, pick a person that you really think that person sparks something on you that kind of gives you an idea of, I want to be that person. I want to aspire to be that individual or to be like that individual, right? Write it down, right? And put into progress in terms of put into practice. Not necessarily you're going to be that person or like that person tomorrow or next year, but 20 years from now, perhaps you get there. The same way you take the same notes on something or a person that you don't want to be like that. You don't want to be that like you don't want to be like that person, right? You want to be something different, and you do the same thing. And when those feelings, a situation comes along, you say, "No, I'm not going to react like that person," right? Perhaps tomorrow you're not going to be there, but 20 years from now, you may be at that position. Right? So this is the idea of the year over year, YOY, right? And that's why we see the truck carrying something on it. It's the load that we carry with us, right? Year over year, right? That, okay, yeah, it's 2026, but I'm still bringing stuff with me from 2025, 2024, 2023. 20 years ago, when I had an issue with my parents, right? With my loved ones. And again, folks, this is not just to the public. This is for me as well, right? So I'm saying this because it is a necessity of the self that also it's important for all of us. So here's what I would like to do. Let's examine this idea by giving an example, right? And I would like to, and I'll try to be as clear as possible with the example. If not, we can go back and read the book. We just don't have time to read it, but it's in English, it's in Portuguese as well. But for us to pay attention to the characters and what happened, and I want you to identify on those individuals the good things and the bad things as well. I'll take a step back. Before we present that, we all paid attention to the message of the book Happy Life, right? Kirsten, what was page 130, 139? What was Joanna De Angelis saying? Accept people as they are. Have you ever gone to one of those supermarket or grocery stores? I'm not going to say the name here because I don't want us to get in trouble. That you need a quarter to get the cart. Very well. All right. So when you get change, right, you get a quarter. What's the value of a quarter? 25 cents. It's a quarter. When you don't have that quarter to get that cart, what's the value of that quarter? Right? You're like, oh, where's that quarter now? I need that quarter. And you're looking through the car and everything. Do we know when you have that quarter and you look at it, 25 cents, you know the value of it. Do we know what that quarter been through? It may be chipped a little bit. It may not, right? It may look dirty, or some of them were very shiny, beautiful, but they have a history. Once you take that quarter and give it to somebody, pass it along, what will be the value of that quarter? 25 cents. Do we know what's going to happen to that quarter? We reached that quarter, farewell, right? It did its what it was supposed to do for you, and we move on. It can come back. Thank you. It can come back. Not perhaps the same quarter, but it's going to go back to the mint. It's going to be melted, and it's going to reincarnate in our lives. Right? Good point. Thank you, Aloysia. I want you to think about that thought, about that feeling, right? And I bring this example of money because I deal with money. And this is something that crossed my mind as Kirsten was reading the message from Joanna de Angelis. So I want you to think about that, and we're going to make a connection. If I don't, remind me about it. Now that we close that parenthesis, let's go to the case. There's a beautiful case on the book, The Messengers. Again, it's in Portuguese, it's in English, it's available to everyone, right? It's the story of Alfredo and his wife, Smalia. Okay? Very interesting case. Alfredo is administrator of the aid station that André Luiz Vicente Aniceto stayed before going to work on the coming down to the physical plane. So they went to this aid station and to stay there. They were, they stay there and, imagine staying at a hotel before you go to a city that you have to get to, right? But even though he lived there, he's the administrator. Smalia only comes to visit him once a month. And you may think, okay, they're husband and wife, and he is the administrator, so you start thinking, what happened there? Well, this is in the spiritual plane. Before they get there, this is their life in the physical realm, right? They had a very good marriage, as he explains on chapter 17, excuse me. And he was a businessman, and his partner, okay, start inciting things or putting things in his mind that the wife, Smalia, was cheating on him. And that went on for quite some time, right? Telling him, okay, she's doing this. He actually paid people to go after her, to find things about her. Nothing was happening. She was a stay-home mother, right? Mother of two. They had two children. And then the partner planted a person in the room one day as he was coming in, arriving at home, and he thought that person was the person cheating with his wife, right? He went after the person. He actually said that, and this is him telling the story, that he tried to shoot the person, nothing happened, and the person left a hat behind, a man's hat, which he thought that, okay, this is it, right? This person, she's cheating on me. So he leaves her, takes the kids. She actually dies many, many, many years later after he goes to another country and dies of tuberculosis, actually. And then he got to find out what happened. And then he comes back from the other country, takes care of his two children. And he actually, after a while, after she passed and everything, he got to know that the man, his partner, was also dying. And right at the deathbed, the partner tells him that he did everything, that he was lying and she was not cheating on him. At that moment, he was furious, and he could not forgive him. Imagine the shock, right? Your wife is gone, right? And now you get to know the truth. When you went away, you left everything behind and whatnot, right? He didn't forgive him. He couldn't forgive him at the time. And then he discarnates years later, and he finds himself in the spiritual realm, right? Why does she only comes to visit him once a month? She didn't do anything, but she was accused of something that she didn't harbor any feeling of rancor or anything. She was not upset with him or anything like that, because it was ideally or ultimately was his decision, right? So she actually ascends morally, and he's behind. He's actually rescued, he's helped, and all of that. And then he gets the ability to start working at the same aid station that he then becomes the administrator, right? And then she comes from Nosso Lar to visit him. On chapter 17, we'll see that he was blinded by a business partner to believe that his wife, Smalia, was cheating on him. And then, chapters later, chapter 27, we will read about Paulo was a suffering spirit who was rescued by Alfredo. He dedicates a daily moment to speak with him and guide him. Do you know who Paulo is? The No, not Alfredo is the husband. Paulo is the man who was actually inciting all the difficult things to make them break up. What did Alfredo do? After he comes to his senses, after he's also rescued, he asks to go and find Paulo and bring him to the aid station so he can be cured. And he actually says, I'm not worthy of spending time or with Ismalia. He recognizes his moral level of level morality of what based on what happened, right? And he also recognizes the situation of Paulo. Paulo could barely speak because before he died, he understood what was happening, what he had done, so much so that he asked for forgiveness. But Alfredo was not in the position to forgive him. Now, let us give these individuals right here, if they were on 2025, do you think they would have crossed the line from 2025 to 2026 very easy? No. 2025 would be haunting them. So much so that not only happened for the duration of time that they were still in the physical body, but also when they discarnated. And that is the point that we would like to make. How much it will take for us, not to say, I forget. We can't forget, right? We can't forget. We're eternal beings, which is, a beautiful thing. But what we do with our choices in terms of what others have done towards us and what we have done towards others, it's a different thing. And that is the realizations that we would like to make in terms of, this is my New Year resolution. I would like to let go. And I would love also for others to let go of what I have done, because it's not worth it, right? When we go to the Gospel according to Spiritism, and this is chapter 10, and we're going to go through some different items here and highlight, as we can see here, some of the things that we thought that is important for us to not only analyze the example that we have here in front of us, or let's call it the three examples, since we're talking about three different individuals, right? We also would like to apply them to ourselves. Item number 8, Jesus said, go first to be reconciled with your brother before presenting your offering at the altar. He's teaching that the sacrifice most pleasing to the Lord is the sacrificing of one's resentment. That before presenting oneself to God in order to be forgiven, it is necessary to have forgiven, and that if a wrong has been committed against any brother or sister, it is necessary to have repaired it. So, how can I be in perfect tune with the Creator when we have something like this inside of us? How can we be happy or live in an environment with that others depend on it when we're not happy? It's very difficult, right? And I'm not saying this to blame anybody or to make anybody feel bad, because again, I'm part of this as well. But it takes a lot of determination to sacrifice our resentment, to say enough is enough. I don't want to feel this anymore. Whether when we did something wrong towards someone, right? That we, in many cases, this is human. This is how we vibrate nowadays, right? Whenever we're asked about a situation that went wrong between one of our friends or brothers and sisters and us, we always try to justify, right? Oh, but this person did this. Because that's the reason why I did this, right? Well, that's our perception. That is our perception, right? And it's okay to justify. Once more, Anybody here or any of us will do whatever it's important to us to defend ourselves or to think that we're okay. But reality will tell us with time, right? Whether in 2025, 2026, or the years after, right? That it's not worth it. It's not worth it. But it takes a lot of work, right? That is a sacrifice. That is the sacrifice. Continue with these thoughts. When Jesus recommends being reconciled as quick as possible with one's adversary, it is not only with a view to mitigating discords in the course of one's current existence, but rather to keep them from continuing in the future ones. As we have talked about it, the year-over-year idea, right? But also, let us think of this. You have a situation at home, right? Something that has been developing at home. When you get to work and you have to deal with work, because work in planet Earth is not easy, right? What are the probabilities that you will not apply the feelings that we have been carrying from home in that work environment? Very likely, right? Very likely you will see the same thing. And that goes for us adults, that goes for children, right? If we don't live in an environment that at least we have our discords, our difficulties, but we don't have the respect in where we need at least time to think or to digest certain things, most likely we're going to bring the same feelings, right? Perhaps a little bit different into the new conditions that will develop that day, especially if something negative. If you have to be on the defensive mode in one aspect of your life, most likely you will also do the same thing on the other aspects of your life. And most likely, year over year, or to keep them or continue with them in future ones as well. You will not leave there, he says, as long as you have not paid the last farthing, meaning as long as you have not completely satisfying God's justice. When we read this, and the first thing that comes to mind is obviously a punitive, right? God, right? Or even Jesus saying this, oh my gosh, paying the last farthing, right? But how can you enter, and this is the next one, the point that we're going to bring, how can we enter a environment of forgiveness if that is not inside of us yet? How can I say, I forgive you, if we don't forgive ourselves, right? So it's entering the environment. It's really accepting the idea that we have been called to do so. Indulgence teaches us that we must not judge others more severely than we would judge ourselves, or condemn others for what we absolve in ourselves. Before blaming someone else's wrong, let us see if the same reproof might not fall upon us. Do we know what that quarter went through? We do not. We can only imagine. Does the quarter have a value? Yes. Did it lose its value after we used it? No. And please don't take this as we are treating one another as quarters. My point is that we do not know, as we read through Joanna de Angelis, what that person is going through. The same way, we do not, the environment, the other people, everything around us do not know what we're going through. So we are not in a position to judge. When I say judgment, judge here is truly the judgment, right, that we pass. That doesn't mean, and this is towards the end of this chapter, I just want to make this quick highlight, because Kardec asked very wisely, so it's not okay, and I'm paraphrasing here in a negative way, it's not okay for us to find or to correct the errors done, right, by others or whatnot. No. We are responsible for one another to say, don't do this, you're going to get hurt, right? don't do this because this is gonna, if somebody's leaning, for example, on this right here, guess what? You guys have to say something if I'm leaning over here because it's gonna break. I'm gonna get hurt. It's gonna be a problem for the SSB, so on and so forth. You get the point. The same thing with our feelings and what we do in life. So we ought to go and help others by saying, what you're about to do or what you did, there will be consequences. Otherwise, it would be an issue for one of the very important laws of the universe, which is progress. If we don't find within the others the ability to come to me, if I don't accept the ability, or if I don't accept somebody coming to me and saying, Leo, try to do this way or that way, I'm going to continue to live on, but there will be a lot of pain, right? So the same for ourselves. So it's okay to correct certain things, right? Or whatever we believe it's wrong. But we also have to think that what we believe it's wrong may be a construct that we have inside of us, right? What we are blaming somebody to do or seeing someone to do, we don't know what they went through. And what we think it's wrong, it may be a construct of ours. And I'm not saying, guys, about things that is mundane, right? Saying bad things, blaming others, treating others not well. There are certain things that we know, but there are some certain other things that perhaps we're blaming others. We're saying certain things, but take a look inside of us. We may not be in the same degree, but we may be doing things that are alike. I can blame the politicians for whatever they are doing with our money, public money. But when I'm at work, am I taking the little breaks when I'm supposed to be producing something? What's the difference? There's a huge difference, Leo. Yes, there is a huge difference, but it's the same principle. Am I taking something home that is not mine? It's the same principle. So we have to think about these things, right? Again, I'm not here condemning, I'm not here reproving or anything that is happening out there, but for us to really look my neighbor, right? We don't know the trajectory of that person until that person came to be with you, to take part with you. And quite frankly, that person, just like that, will be going someplace else. And what have we done to maintain a harmonious status with that person? Not that we have to agree with it or live like that person, but let's give that person our farewell in a good way, in a positive way, right? So this is again one of the very amazing chapter of the book, because it talks about one of the parts of the Sermon of the Mount when Jesus says, blessed are the merciful, right? And talks about reconciliation, right? Talks about, us judging others when we don't see the problem in ourselves. I definitely would encourage everyone to read this passage. But I want to do something. I want to take do a quick analysis as well in this idea of judging others, guilt, of not forgiving, the standards that we have create in life as well, in terms of the laws, our social laws, and the laws that we create inside of us, right? What's right or what's wrong, right? In many cases, when we're very punitive with ourselves, right? Very harsh with ourselves, which we ought to be, but we also have to understand that we are evolutionary beings, right? So what we think about justice and being just perhaps is the way we were raised, which is often what our parents were able to give it to us. Were they perfect? No. I love my parents, but I know they were not perfect. I know what they gave it to me was important, and I try to take as much as possible and apply it, but not everything is perfect. This kind of, get us as close as we can be to our parents, because when we look at ourselves, what we are also passing along to our children, we also see that's like, wait a minute, I can get better there, right? So I want to kind of analyze this idea of what we have created and what has happened in our lives after we created the laws, right? After we start pointing to certain aspect and saying this is wrong, right? One more to finalize. You shall do for others what you would want your heavenly Father to do for you. Has he not forgiven you often? Does he count the number of times his forgiveness has descended to wipe away your wrongs, right? Vibrate in that environment, right? Enter that environment. In order for us to do so, in order for us to be forgiven or to be accepted, we have to do the same thing. We have to be in that position. The Apostle Paul, on the letters to Romans, chapter 5, verse 20 and 21, says the following: the law was brought in so that the trespass might increase. But where sin increased, grace increased all the more, so that just as sin reigned in death, so also grace might reign through righteousness to bring eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord. When the laws were being created, right? And we're talking about any law. What happened? We start seeing more wrong. Because we're now identifying something that, okay, you did something wrong. You did something wrong. You did something wrong. Because now there is a law. Because before, it was just part of our daily lives. Everybody did the same thing. It was okay with it, right? And it took time for everybody to analyze that now there's a law. I cannot do this. There will be consequences, so on and so forth, right? But also, there's one thing that happened when we start creating laws. We analyzed, we identified that people were doing wrong things, but also our capability to forgive and to bring grace over other people also increased it. Because what if it was my father, my mother, or myself in that position? Wouldn't I want to have grace if I were to cross that stop sign, hopefully not hitting anybody, right? And what does the cop does? If he sees that you have a clean slate, a clean record, gives you a warning. The law is straight to the point. You cross the stop sign, you will be fined, right? But they look at it and say, you know what? The person was not doing well, late to work and everything, cross the stop sign or cross the light, right? Give you a warning. Great. Don't do it anymore. In the past, everybody was crossing the stop sign. There were no stop signs, right? Everybody was crossing the intersection and hitting one another, and it was okay. But then we identified if we put a light or if we put a sign here, things will get better. If you don't, there will be consequences. Not only you can hit somebody, but you can also get a ticket, right? So, besides this explanation, I want to read something that is really impactful, at least to me when I read it, and it's a passage from the book Saint Francis of Assisi. And the book is amazing because it also identified several of spirits who reincarnated with Saint Francis of Assisi to bring the order and to do what he was able to do within the church, right? And when I say the church, it is actually our hearts, because the church is still the church, doing great things. There are people just like us. They're not perfect. And even though they represent what they represent, which is amazing, and we respect that. But when I say the church here, it would be what did it to our hearts, right? And this right here is actually an explanation from Saint Anthony of Padua, when he was actually in Italy then, because he was born in Portugal, professing to people on the street, right? And he says the following about this passage, and I will read because it's really beautiful. The law came so that the offense might be revealed, but where sin abounded, grace abounded even more. The law appeared out of mercy and shows us how many offenses were hidden, without us being able to put an end to human ignorance, without us being able to alleviate the suffering, without us being able to visit the imprisoned and bring them hope through the grace of our Lord. The law was a divine phenomenon on earth, like a bridle on the savage impulses of our hearts, preventing intelligence from creating more problems or retaliating with vengeance without first knowing the truth. Thank God there are still men in the world dedicated to justice and who even give their lives for it. We owe the planting of this force largely to the great Moses, whose legacy would give rise to love, which exploded in the form of Christ. How could we have the known, how could we have and known love without first walking the path of justice? So, how can we develop kindness within us if we don't have parameters? If we don't put a line and say this is the baseline, which is also another terminology that we use when we're trying to fix something in the in operations, in banking and whatnot. You have a baseline. Okay, this is the point that I'm going from. I am not doing A, B, C. So what's the idea here that I would like to do A, B, C, right? And then you can put a number. I want to do well, or I want to reach this number. Do we do that in our lives? Quite often we don't, right? So the establishment of a law, the Ten Commandments that he's talking about here, Moses, right? Saying we are not to do this, we're not to do that. It is a moment of realization that if we don't have guidelines in our lives, we're not going to succeed. Not only as an individual, but also as a group of people, right? But with those laws, we're able to say, okay, fine, we're not supposed to do this, right? If it happens, what do we do? We guide one another. We take their hands and say, this is how it's supposed to be done, right? And then Jesus comes and says the following with the new second revelation. What Jesus says, do this way. Where Moses says, don't do, Jesus said, do it this way. And then the third revelations, showing us, again, I would like to say, how to do it, but also the consequences, which is Spiritism. Not only the consequences in the now, but also in the future life as well. And the future life can be after we lose the physical body or when we come back. But he says more. He paused for a few seconds, his eyes sweeping over the faithful who drank in his words as if they were the finest wine, and continue. It seems that after we learn the laws, sins increased. Certainly because before we did not see their effects, or because their consequences were considered natural. There was no justice for those less fortunate in life. The common people were considered animals, the imprisoned beasts, and the illiterate monsters. But when heaven showed us a more excellent path through the prophets and through the mouth of the unmistakable shepherd, the Christ announced by the great Isaiah, apparently the errors that already existed superabounded. And then we begun, by the grace of the Lord, to correct them. For this, many perished in the fires, in the infected dungeons, on the crosses. However, by God's mercy, assistance to the unfortunate, the sick, the imprisoned, and those whom injustice hunted down without respecting innocence, increased. Nevertheless, my children, The righteous have their reward wherever they are, because God is light far more than the sun, and injustice is a shadow that does not exist in the presence of light. Let us apply this to our lives. We have created, we live on the guidance of different laws, right? And I'm talking about the social laws that we have. We have the understanding of to a degree of the constructs that we have created, right? Why do I deal with myself this way, right? When I do something wrong, or when someone does something wrong towards me, why do I trigger when this happens, right? Why do I elevate my voice when this happens? We know that it's happening, but are we asking where it comes from? Sometimes we don't know. Most of the time, we don't know. I don't know. But we know one thing: after it happens, we don't feel well. It's much like eating that chocolate that we feel guilty and we're like, oh, gosh, it happened again. And that haunts us year over year, right? But then comes grace, because now we're being alerted of something that we did not even pay attention to. We just reacted, or others reacted with us, right? Then comes Spiritism telling us that let's not get caught up on one aspect of our lives. The same way we don't know what others have been, we don't know where, they don't know where we have been. We know where we're going, for sure. And we know our value. And that goes back to the analogy of the coin. We know our value. We know that we're valued something. We're sons and daughters of God, right? But we also ought to give us the ability to think that we're evolving. Yes. I will ask the Father for the opportunity to become a better person. Whether if I can do it here or not, guess what? We don't know. But once we enter that position, then things start getting lighter, right? Not only for ourselves, but for others as well, because we're vibrating the same way. And in the same book, this is actually when St. Francis of Assisi is having a conversation with different friars, and they ask him several questions. And one of the questions is the following: Brother Francisco, it would be good for all of us if we knew more about forgiveness. He says the following: those who already understand that they should forgive are comprehending the existence of spiritual well-being. Here's talking about just comprehending, much like we're trying to get there, right? If we at least fathom the idea of forgiveness, let it go, right? We are aware, becoming aware of the existence of spiritual being. Not the one that we are stuck in that moment. That's not eternal life. Because we think of eternal life as, okay, yeah, I'm going to lose the physical body and we're going to the next life, so on and so forth. Yes, it is. But that's going to happen. But what's inside of us, that's not eternal if we're stuck in the same moment of our lives, or the different moments that we have created or others have created on us. Whether they're whatever incited them to do so, it's up to them. Why would I accept that beautiful gift, not to say other things? But then he continues and says, those who already enjoy forgiving are students in the school of charity towards themselves. Charity towards themselves. And those who forgive out of love for the creatures who offended them have already freed themselves from the contingencies of the world and attain universal good, feeding themselves from God's great supply. Great supply of love, right? Resources, right? So I like to say that I'm not even in the first group of people, right? But that's the idea. The idea for us to stop, think, right? And why am I triggered about A, B, or C, right? Or, as Daniel was explaining to us last week, why I can't not even create a New Year resolution for me or for myself, even the physical ones. We're so bogged down. We're not feeling well. We're not, we go from one moment of another of our lives, right? And we cannot even see the future. Why is that? And we say, oh, yeah, because of this and this and that. But what's inside of us? Because the muscles that we're going to put on if we go to the gym, it's beautiful. But are we taking with us? No. That determination that we put on to say, I'm going to go to live a better life, perhaps may connect in other areas of our life, right? If I'm being a better person at the gym, I'm going to be, or with my physical body, I'm also going to be a person that I'm not late, that I'm not. But again, it goes back to the thought. It goes back to the principle that we would like to establish for ourselves. And that's the idea of New Year resolution, to be with the heart. To finalize, just since we have a couple more minutes, I came across a really interesting passage. I think it's, sorry, forgive me for forgetting the name of the book, by Chico Xavier and Brother X, Humberto de Campos, when he tells the story of James and Matthias, right? James the Lesser and Matthias, who was actually the apostle who took the place of Judas after he kills himself. And James, at one point, with Matthias, he started talking about Judas in a very negative way, right? Because he was really upset or really sad, and whatever feelings we can bring out there. And the story is beautiful, brought by Humberto de Campos, and he started describing of what James was saying to Matthias on how he betrayed Jesus. Judas betrayed Jesus, right? And he's saying, look, he did this horrible thing. Even though Peter was actually saying, let us forgive, he did this not out of malice, but thinking that Jesus was going to do something else, right? And he would not even take that as a way to bring kindness to his heart. He was really enraged. And then Matthias started adding to it as well, and saying, so what did the family said about this, about his act, right? And they go back and forth with this, all the complaints that James had about Judas on what he did. And mind you, this is after Judas had already committed suicide. And then at one point after the conversation, they see this light coming towards them, approaching them, and they kneel down, right? And they kneeled and they see that it's Jesus. Again, after Jesus had ascended. And James turns to Jesus and say, Master, I'm ready to go to Jerusalem and work with the people. And then he was reminded at that moment that the same situation had already happened when Jesus came to him while alive and say, why are you complaining about people in Jerusalem? Let's help them. And this is in another book as well, also brought by Chico Xavier. And Jesus says, no, I'm not going to town. I'm on my way to help Judas. Yes. And that was the moment that he saw the beautiful idea of forgiveness, right? How could the master, right, go? Well, I shouldn't say how could the master did that, right? But the master was showing to him that while you're here talking, I'm going to rescue him. I'm going to go after him because he did something wrong. Much like Alfredo look at the situation and say, you know what? I had already lost what I could lose, right? My life, my dignity, my family, right? I became a fool in front of my kids and my wife's family members as well. What am I supposed to do? Go after Paulo. And every single day of his life, while he was at the aid station, he would go and talk to Paulo. Paulo, how are you? And there is a beautiful passage in the book where Paulo saying, I'm okay. Thank. He could not even say, thank God. And then Paulo, at one point, he's incited to say, thank God. And the way they put on the book is ... Thank God, because he had to really, really put the effort to even connect with God, because he did not know what his situation, because after what he had done, he felt horrible, and he still, well, as they're describing in the book, The Messengers, he was still suffering a lot. That is what we would like to present to you today. That in this example, as we mentioned, right, Alfredo, Smalia, and Paulo, for us to pick what we can take from these individuals, the good and the bad, and we make a list out of them, right, and say, I would like to do this. I would like to put the effort to be as forgiving as Alfredo was in the aftermath, right? But now, but at this moment, if something like that were to happen in my life, right? I would like to be Paulo's bravery. I would like to have Paulo's bravery to say, even before we die, to say, I'm sorry, I did something wrong. Because sometimes we carry over to the next life, right? And I would like to be Smalia, right? That even though she saw what happened, based on her condition of ascending more than Alfredo, right? And being able to be given the ability to come and be with him once a month, she did not hold any grudges. Because otherwise, she would be there with him, or she would be in a much lower situation. It takes effort. It takes the desire to do so, and also sometimes the audacity, right? For us to be this forgiving. For us to look at our guilt of whatever we're bringing with us from the previous years, from yesterday, and saying no more. Hoping that 2026 is a year that we don't bring the past with us. If we do, it's only a baseline that we look at and say, this is the point, but I'm not going to be any lesser than that, right? I want to be something more. We would like to, each one of us, to be more than we were yesterday, right? So we hope that we can do something with this message and have a more fulfilling 2026 and try to be as happy as we can, even though we know that happiness is not of this world, but we have our moments here, right? We have our little insights of what this could be if we multiply it even more in our lives, right? I would like to open for questions, comments here, online.
Thank you, Leo. Yeah, we have a comment and two questions online, but I just wanted to see someone here, person wanted to ask question first before we read the questions online. Who has a question? Kirsten has. Sophia has a question. Yeah. You have a comment? Here, just a minute. Here. Dennis. Behind you.
It's not like directly related to the topic, but that's a side comment. You brought the idea of the time in the spiritual world. It's 1 month. Have you studied how actually time works in the spiritual world? If that's the same, it behaves the same as the planet Earth?
No, we don't have anything directly, but why do we have time on Earth? It's based on the rotation of the planet, right? That's how we can even make a an analysis between two planets, between us and Mars, right? What would it be one day for them? What would it be a full year for them, right? So we see that it's different based on the physical aspect of that location. But I want to add one thing to this, to this conversation, and this is, to me, is the most important part of it. Your kids, when you're going from here to a location that you know, or going to the beach, right? How long does it take? 2 hours, 2 hours, 45 minutes? Do they see those 2 hours and 45 minutes the same way we do? No. Did we, much longer, did we see the same way we see it now? No. Now, let's take that example and put that example, for example, Alfredo, when he got the shock that he was wrong. He was stuck, done, right? And then when he realizes, when I say he is stuck, is there's time ceases to exist because he's stuck in that moment. He's now only thinking about what have I done? And going back in time and reliving that moment over and over and over and over. Now, think about of what happened to him in terms of time, like his perception of time, once he realized what has happened. And now I have to fix all this. He may look back, right, and say, I lost all this time. He's still stuck, right? And then he takes that energy and he puts forth to say, now it's a new beginning. Now I start seeing time again a completely different way. So don't think your question is wrong. I'm glad that you asked, because it truly pertains to what we're studying here. Because sometimes we're thinking that we are eternal beings, but we are stuck in a specific moment in different bodies. And that is sometimes the issues that we find when we look at ourselves and say, why do I have this feeling that something is going to happen? And it's in the book Action Reaction. Kirsten may remind me of the terminology that is used by André Luiz. When us, in general, we have this moment of our lives that we think that something's going to happen, or that we feel this or that way. These are reminiscences of the past that we have lived in one life, but we keep bringing with us. Sometimes they were good things, even though they were, let's say, drastic things that had happened to us in the past. And we bring with us again as an alert to say, I'm not going to go there again because I know what happened to me in the past, right? But the truth of the matter is, where's time on this whole thing? Very relative, right? And it's relative on how we're perceiving ourselves, right? The 24 hours went by, but I still think it's Monday because I'm connected to work, right? Tomorrow is Sunday, and my Sunday may be destroyed because I am really worried about a meeting that I may have on Monday. Where's time on this whole thing? So I hope that answers the question and helps.
Just wanted to add, your explanation. Yeah, now you're right on that. So I think André Luiz mentioned about exactly the question, the comment that he made about time. The time in the spiritual world is relative. So it's not count the same thing that's counted here. It's not tick, tick, like 60 minutes, 1 hour. It's relative to the level of the spirit, as you mentioned, in the comparison between children and adult. So for a spirit, that high evolved spirit, time is always present. It's like, you know what I mean? They live an eternal presence. For lower level spirit, the time is passed so slow. For example, when we go and see the example of André Luiz. When André Luiz, we learned from nosso lá that he spent 8 years. The question is, this 8 years is the same amount of time, 8 years for us, but for the spirit. But for us, if we have to do the comparison, probably, I don't know, probably would be 2 years. But in his experience, looks like 8 years, right? So it's relative to the level of conscience that the spirit is in the other side. So it's not the same as we count here in the physical. Yeah. So the most interesting is that the eternal present, for example, a spirit like Jesus, time is eternal present all the time. There is no, you know what I mean? It's very hard for us to conceive that because we are not a perfect spirit. But for a perfect spirit, time pretty much does not exist. It's present all the time. For us, it's present now. 1 second ago is past, right? So I just wanted to add this comment.
Thank you.
But that was a good question.
You said you had one more comment.
Yeah, there is
online?
a comment here online. I will ask Kirsten to read because I don't have my glasses here. A comment by Myra, and she has a question as well, and a question by Wendell. Let me see here. So-
Okay, comment from Myra. Thank you, Leo, for bringing up this topic, which encourages us to conduct an individual and reflective audit of our actions, thoughts, and words. It also invites us to continue improving and evolving. And she follows up with a question. Could you please give us some tips on how to identify if we are harboring resentment and guilt towards others or towards ourselves? I can repeat the question if you
Yeah, I
want.
got you.
Okay.
Thank you. And hello, Myra. And I think number one, it's a very personal question. And I think we have to do an analysis. Well, I'm certain that we have to do an analysis on our day, right? And this is very hard when we are in the middle of the fire, right? When we are in dancing with the other groups or playing the orchestra, right? Sometimes it takes somebody from the outside to say and to analyze it and say, well, you missed that note, right? If you're watching the orchestra, right? Sometimes you have to get out of the orchestra, watch what you have done, right? Or was not done. And then with that assessment, come up with a plan. And I say this to say that that sometimes it takes others. When somebody looks at us and saying, you did this or you did that, right? Or why you're rushing through things, or why are you in someplace else, right? But you're not here. Physically here, but not, physically or not. Different things, right? Why do I'm trying to compensate with that chocolate cake. Why is that, right? Why am I trying to compensate with extra work, right? What am I avoiding and bringing something else to my life? Is it escape mechanism, right? Or is a just because the way I am, right? So I think that it's important for us to look at these opportunities, and I'm not saying that they're bad things. These are opportunities that we have in our life to say, maybe I need to take a step back, right? Are we saying yes, 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 yes for everything? Are we saying no, 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 no for everything, right? So there are many, many things that can bring us to this realization and then help us. And then I emphasize once more that we need help. Many, many times we need help, right? Of a health practitioner that can come to us and say, why don't you try this way? They're not going to tell us what to do, but they may gear us or suggest for us to do certain things that may be a little bit more pain alleviating at the beginning until we create habits in our lives that is habits that will take us to a better place in the future, right? And when I say a better place, it's not the outside, because the outside will most likely stay the same. It's really what inside of us, right? How we perceive the others. But that's a good question, but I'll go back and say it is very personal, right? And we got to be careful in two ways here. There are a lot of judgment. They're just judgment that has no purpose whatsoever. And I urge you to read, if anything, the 3 last questions by the spirits, answered by the spirits on this chapter 10 of the Gospel according to Spiritism, that there are only people sometimes come and say certain things to us only to get us upset. They may be true, out something towards on us, but not with the intent to help us. But there are also other individuals say things to us, right? And their intent is truly to help us. It may not be what we want to hear it, but for sure, it's going to guide us somewhere. Because sometimes we think, please God, or please Jesus, or my mentor. Well, the mentor sent somebody right in front of you, but you're not listening, right? You continue to pray, but it's right there. It's not, you're not listening, right? Or I am not listening. Maybe I should say it that way. Hopefully that helps, Miss Myra.
We have another question from Wendell. He says, thank you, Leo, for the amazing talk. Why do we tend to reduce New Year's resolutions to material matters, especially those related to the physical body?
Very good question, because we're materialists. We see the physical body, right? Now, as we brought here earlier, is there something wrong with this? No, there's nothing wrong with this. It's okay to, when we get home and we see everything a mess, right? What do? We try to clean it up, right? If we have a visitor, let's straighten everything up, right? It's okay. It's perfectly fine. And then once you do it, you're like, you take the next step. Maybe I should do this, right? And there is a story, which I don't remember now all the details, that Divaldo used to tell in his talk quite often as well, about the daughter of a couple that was invited to play, and they had to buy a nice dress for the daughter, but they live in a house that perhaps when she were to put the dress and she left the house, the dress was going to get dirty. So they had not only to fix, not only to buy the dress, but also fix the entrance of the house where they lived and all that. So the exterior, cleaning the exterior, organizing ourselves, right, will also help what's inside. Because before we organize the physical, there was a drive, and the drive came from here, and the drive came from here, right? So it's okay. Now, what's our purpose just to go to the gym, since we're talking about New Year resolution, to pack up muscle? If that is the drive, nah. Now, if the drive is for you to say, I went to the gym this morning and I did my workout, it was not easy. So instead of eating that chocolate, I'm going to pass it. Then you start making beautiful decisions because you already done the hard work, right? Versus if you go in the afternoon, and there's actually a study on this, if you go in the afternoon, you tend to have a very lavish day because, I'm going to go to the gym later on. But when you do early in the morning, then your mind is already asking you, don't do it, right? Mind you, I didn't say criticizing you. Your mind is already playing games and telling you, don't do it. You already did some hard work, right? Some of us may say, it's okay, I already did my work. But truly, you want to listen to the reason, right? But that is that's a good point, Wendell. And thank you for listening, and thank you for bringing this question, because it begs us, since we're talking about changing ourselves spiritually, morally, for us to make some resolutions. Maybe we can go back tonight to our resolutions that we have made and say, this year I'm going to lie less. This year I'm going to tell less, let's say disinformation, right? Or not, only tell things or say things that we truly know that it is true, right? If we have to say it. At the end of the day, what's the purpose all about this? So thank you for, again, is that it, Daniel? Okay, we'll finalize with that then.
There's a comment from Alba, but it relates to the earlier discussion about time. And she just says, time is necessary in our current level of evolution. In more advanced worlds, time, the way we know it, doesn't exist.
And I would like to end with that, because if there is any guilt, any feelings out of us, anything that we know that we need to forgive, as we have read here, let's ask for time. right? Let us be truth to ourselves and say, it's not going to be tomorrow. And ask God for the courage to bear every single day, even though we want to change things, we want to make amends, or we want to hear from somebody else, right? I forgive you, right? Or or the other way around. Let's ask for time. Let's be faithful with time, in hope that it will come soon. And let's do everything in our power, right, within the time that we are waiting, that it comes soon, sooner than later, right? So hopefully, we can live again more fulfilling lives, and may the wishes of 2026 be ever more morally ascending than ever. Thank you.